Have you ever stopped to think about what truly defines a successful life? Nowadays, we are bombarded with messages telling us that happiness comes from material possessions, status, and external achievements. But what if I told you that all of this is nothing more than a grand illusion? The true path to inner peace and internal transformation may lie in something as ancient as the Roman Empire itself, Stoicism. This practical philosophy, developed over 2,000 years ago, aims to teach anyone regardless of their position in life, how to find resilience, serenity, and wisdom in the face of daily challenges. The problem is that many of us live at the mercy of external events, believing that the world around us controls our happiness. We suffer from adversities, consumerism, and even victimhood, without realizing that the key to a better life lies within us. Stoicism proposes a radical shift in perspective. It's not the events themselves that affect us, but rather how we interpret and react to them. It seems simple, right? But this simplicity hides depths that can change your life forever. Imagine being able to face the difficulties of everyday life with courage, justice, and self-control, no matter what happens around you. Think about how it would feel to live without being swept away by the whirlwind of emotions caused by others or by circumstances. That is the power of the art of living that Stoicism offers. And the best part? You don't need to be a philosopher or have a degree to apply it. All it takes is the willingness to look inward and make small, daily changes. In this content, we will explore how iconic figures like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca shaped their lives based on these principles. You'll understand how these men, coming from such different contexts, from the imperial throne to slavery, managed to find meaning and purpose amidst adversity. Additionally, we'll delve into the cardinal virtues, courage, justice, self-control, and wisdom, and discover how they can become pillars of your life. But get ready, this isn't just another text about philosophy. We're talking about a practical journey, where every word has the potential to transform your way of thinking and acting. By the end, you won't just understand Stoicism, you'll also know exactly how to apply it in your daily life. So, are you ready to take the first step toward becoming a better version of yourself? If you've ever felt lost amid the challenges of modern life, know that you're not alone. Stoicism emerges as a powerful compass, offering practical guidance for dealing with everything that drives us crazy. Unlike other philosophical currents that seem distant or inaccessible, Stoicism is designed to be applied in daily life. It's like an instruction manual for facing any situation, whether at work, in relationships, or even during those internal crises that no one else sees. Imagine starting your day with a clear and focused mindset, knowing exactly how to react to adversities before they even happen. That is the essence of Stoicism, transforming your mind into a training ground where inner happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances. After all, who said we need material goods or someone else's approval to be happy? With self-awareness and internal control, we can build a more resilient and meaningful life. The Stoics argue that practical philosophy should be accessible to everyone, regardless of social class or academic background. Marcus Aurelius, for example, wrote his Meditations not as an intellectual treatise but as personal reflections to guide his own choices while emperor. He knew that ethical leadership begins within ourselves, and this idea resonates even today in every area of life. Who knows? Maybe you could start jotting down your daily reflections too. Here's a simple tip to get started. Throughout the day, observe your automatic reactions to external events. When something goes wrong, instead of blaming the world, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This is pure Stoicism, a way to cultivate wisdom and constant growth. You don't need to revolutionize your life all at once. Small steps already make a big difference. Another fascinating point is how Stoicism combats consumerism and excessive attachment. We live in a society that pushes products and experiences as promises of instant happiness. But how many times have we bought something thinking it would solve our problems, only to realize that the emptiness remained? Minimalism, so celebrated today, is nothing new. The Stoics already preached that less is more when it comes to inner peace. Finally, it's worth highlighting that Stoicism isn't just about enduring hardships but also about enjoying the beauty of life. It's possible to find serenity even amidst chaos. Seneca used to say that we should use our imagination to anticipate adversities, preparing ourselves emotionally to face them. This approach not only strengthens our ability to respond but also helps us appreciate every good moment as a rare gift. Interesting, isn't it? One of the greatest lessons of Stoicism is the clear distinction between what we can control and what lies beyond our reach. It seems simple, right? But how many times do we find ourselves frustrated because traffic was bad or because someone didn't meet our expectations? The truth is that external events, like the weather, the economy, or even other people's opinions, are outside our control. What really matters is how we choose to interpret these occurrences and react to them. This idea might sound radical at first glance, but it's liberating. Imagine yourself in a situation of exile, something Seneca faced during his life. He could have succumbed to suffering and resentment, but instead chose to see this adversity as an opportunity to reflect on himself and strengthen his morality. This shows us that while external events may limit our physical freedom, our minds always remain free to choose how to respond. Another practical example would be dealing with criticism. All of us will face judgment at some point in life, whether at work or on social media. Instead of letting negative opinions shake us, we can use the practical philosophy of Stoicism to question, is this criticism valid? Does it contribute to my growth? If yes, we learn something valuable. If not, we move on without wasting precious energy on what's beyond our control. Here's an interesting exercise. At the end of each day, make a mental or written list dividing events into 2 columns, under my control and beyond my control. This practice helps reinforce the perception that many things stressing us out don't deserve so much space in our minds. It's like cleaning out the closet of the soul, leaving only what truly matters. Moreover, this focus on internal interpretations teaches us to cultivate cardinal virtues like courage and wisdom. When we realize that our reactions shape our experience, we begin to act with more awareness and less impulsiveness. For example, instead of reacting with anger to an injustice, we can seek fair and balanced solutions, turning adversity into an opportunity for moral growth. Finally, it's worth remembering that this separation between internal and external doesn't mean indifference to the world around us. On the contrary, Stoicism encourages us to be active agents of change, but always starting from a solid foundation of self-control and serenity. After all, those who act driven by uncontrolled emotions rarely achieve positive results. The secret lies in mastering what happens inside us first, then influencing what lies outside. When we talk about Stoicism, it's impossible not to mention the giants who shaped this philosophy and made it accessible to this day. Each of these thinkers, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, brings a unique perspective on how to apply Stoic principles in real life. They didn't just write about theories, they lived these ideas in extremely challenging circumstances, proving that the art of living can flourish even in the most adverse scenarios. Let's start with Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor. Imagine leading a vast empire like the Roman Empire, facing wars, political intrigues, and economic crises. Instead of succumbing to stress or the temptation of absolute power, he chose to use his position to practice ethical leadership based on the cardinal virtues. His meditations are a personal testimony of how to maintain serenity and morality even when the world seems to be collapsing around you. A practical example? Read a few pages of this work before sleeping. It serves as a daily reminder that we can choose our attitude toward challenges. Epictetus, on the other hand, teaches us something even more surprising. Resilience doesn't depend on circumstances but on how we interpret reality. Enslaved and disabled, he could have become bitter or defeatist. However, he transformed his pain into wisdom, emphasizing that we are responsible for our reactions. He used to say, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them." This simple yet powerful phrase can completely change how we deal with adversities at work or at home. Seneca, meanwhile, was a man of multiple faces, playwright, politician, and advisor to Emperor Nero. Despite his privileged position, he also faced exile and death ordered by Nero himself. In his letters and essays, he explores themes like courage, justice, and inner happiness, always highlighting that true wealth lies within us. A practice inspired by Seneca is to set aside a few minutes each day to reflect on what truly matters. This helps combat consumerism and excessive attachment. These 3 great names share something in common. They all faced monumental difficulties but never allowed suffering to define their lives. They show us that Stoicism isn't just an academic theory but a practical tool for handling any situation. For instance, by experiencing slavery, exile, or political pressure, they continued seeking internal transformation, demonstrating that internal control is the greatest treasure anyone can possess. Additionally, each of them contributed to connecting Stoicism with other philosophies or religions. Seneca, for example, exchanged letters with the Apostle Paul, indicating similarities between Stoicism and Christianity. Meanwhile, Epictetus directly influenced modern Buddhism, especially regarding the pursuit of inner peace. This proves that Stoic teachings transcend time and culture, remaining relevant for anyone seeking a more meaningful life. Finally, by studying these great names, we realize that Stoicism isn't about achieving perfection but about becoming better every day. Whether facing extreme adversities or just dealing with small daily frustrations, we can learn a lot from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. Who knows? Maybe you'll decide to dive deeper into the works of these masters. After all, they've faced challenges similar to ours, and emerged stronger on the other side. If there's one thing that defines Stoicism as a practical philosophy, it's its solid foundation in the cardinal virtues: courage, justice, self-control, and wisdom. These pillars aren't just abstract concepts. They serve as concrete guides for dealing with the challenges of daily life. By cultivating them, we begin to realize that inner happiness isn't a destination but a continuous process of internal transformation. Courage, for example, isn't just about facing physical dangers. It also involves having the strength to confront our own fears, doubts, and weaknesses. How many times have we refrained from acting out of fear of what others might think? Stoicism teaches us that true courage lies in following our principles, even when it means swimming against the tide. A practical exercise would be to list situations where you feel afraid to act and gradually face them with small steps. This strengthens your mental resilience. Justice, on the other hand, goes beyond the legal system or written laws. For the Stoics, being just means treating others with compassion and fairness, regardless of circumstances. This might sound utopian, but think about it. How many conflicts could be avoided if each of us sought to understand the other person's point of view before reacting impulsively? Ethical leadership starts exactly here. By putting collective interests above selfish ones, we create a more harmonious environment for everyone. Self-control, meanwhile, is perhaps one of the most challenging virtues in the modern world. We're surrounded by constant stimuli: social media, advertisements, sensationalist news, that try to steal our attention and lead us to unchecked consumerism. The Stoics argue that we must free ourselves from these unnecessary distractions, focusing only on what truly matters. A simple practice would be to limit the time spent on electronic devices, replacing it with activities that enrich our consciousness, such as reading or meditation. And then we come to wisdom, the glue that holds all these virtues together. Being wise doesn't mean knowing everything but being willing to continuously learn and apply that knowledge in real life. Marcus Aurelius used to say, "Everything that happens has been seen before." This perspective helps us see external events not as unique tragedies but as part of the natural cycle of existence. With this broader view, we can respond to adversities with calmness and clarity. These four virtues form the foundation of a well-lived life, according to Stoicism. But the most fascinating aspect is that they don't require special conditions to be practiced. We don't need wealth, status, or someone else's approval to be courageous, just, self-controlled, or wise. All it takes is choosing, at every moment, to act according to these principles. And here's the hook. By adopting these virtues, we begin to realize that many of our sufferings are caused by mistaken interpretations and automatic reactions, something we'll explore further in the next topic. Finally, it's worth remembering that Stoicism doesn't preach immediate perfection. All of us fail at some point, whether by losing emotional control or acting unjustly. What's important is recognizing these mistakes, learning from them, and moving forward. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to us that defines us, but how we choose to react. So, which cardinal virtue would you like to start practicing today? Stoicism and minimalism may seem like separate concepts at first glance, but in reality they intertwine deeply. Both share the idea that less is more, especially when it comes to material goods and unnecessary distractions. In a world where we're bombarded by advertisements and promises of instant happiness, the Stoics remind us that true inner peace comes from within, not from objects accumulated in the closet or on shelves. Think about how many times you've bought something thinking it would solve your problems or fill an emotional void. Maybe it was a new phone, a trendy outfit, or even an expensive trip. However, when you got home, that initial shine quickly faded, and you realized nothing had truly changed. This is the great deception of consumerism. It makes us believe that happiness depends on external events, when in fact it's deeply rooted in our perception and self-control. The Stoics, like Seneca, warned about the dangers of excessive attachment to riches. He wrote extensively about the importance of valuing what truly matters: human relationships, cardinal virtues, and practical wisdom. For him, Accumulating material goods not only distracts our minds but also creates a false sense of security. When we place our trust in objects, we become vulnerable to future losses. Can you imagine the weight that would be lifted off your shoulders if you decided to live with less? A practice inspired by Stoicism is to regularly perform a Stoic cleanup. This means reviewing your belongings and eliminating everything that doesn't add real value to your life. It's not just about organizing drawers, it's about reflecting on your priorities and cutting out the superfluous. Try setting aside a weekend for this task. You might be surprised by the sense of lightness that comes from letting go of the unnecessary. Moreover, minimalism isn't limited to physical objects. It also involves reducing the consumption of useless information, like sensationalist news or social media that only generates comparison and anxiety. By adopting a more mindful approach to what enters your mind, you begin to cultivate serenity and focus. As Epictetus taught, we should direct our energy toward what we can control, and this certainly includes our daily choices about what we consume. Finally, it's worth emphasizing that minimalism isn't about deprivation or sacrifice. On the contrary, it's about creating space for what truly matters. When we eliminate excess, we make room for more meaningful experiences and moments of genuine connection. Imagine being able to look around and know that every item in your home has a clear purpose, just as every thought in your mind aligns with your deepest values. This is the essence of Stoicism applied to moderate consumption, and perhaps it's exactly what you need to face modern adversities with more clarity and resilience. Life has a peculiar way of testing us, doesn't it? Whether it's an unexpected illness, a financial setback, or even the loss of a loved one, adversities seem to arise when we least expect them. But here's the good news. Stoicism offers powerful tools for facing these moments with resilience and courage. It's not about avoiding suffering. After all, it's an inevitable part of existence, but about learning to handle it in a way that strengthens us instead of destroying us. Epictetus, for example, had an almost poetic view of suffering. He claimed that what cannot be controlled, such as exile, slavery, or even death, shouldn't be a cause for despair. Instead, we should focus our energy on what's within our control, our interpretations, reactions, and attitudes. Imagine facing a difficult situation knowing that, regardless of the external outcome, you've already won by choosing to respond with dignity and morality. This mindset transforms any challenge into an opportunity for growth. Another crucial point is that Stoicism doesn't advocate passivity in the face of difficulties. On the contrary, it encourages us to act with practical wisdom, always starting from a solid foundation of internal transformation. For example, if you're facing a problem at work, instead of reacting impulsively or blaming others, you can use your imagination to anticipate different scenarios and emotionally prepare for them. Seneca used to say that we should rehearse adversities in our minds because it helps us be ready when they actually happen. An interesting exercise would be to list possible future challenges and reflect on how you'd like to react to each of them. Moreover, Stoicism teaches us that courage isn't the absence of fear but the ability to act despite it. We all feel fear in the face of the unknown, whether it's changing careers, facing criticism, or taking on new responsibilities. The trick is to recognize this fear without letting it paralyze our actions. Remember Marcus Aurelius, who led an empire while facing personal and political crises. He wasn't immune to stress, but he chose to confront it with courage and justice, showing that true strength comes from within. A simple practice for cultivating resilience is to establish a daily reflection routine. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what difficult thing happened today? How did I react? What can I improve tomorrow? This habit not only helps identify behavioral patterns but also strengthens your ability to respond to future challenges. It's like training a muscle. The more you exercise your mind to handle adversities, the stronger it becomes. Finally, it's worth remembering that resilience doesn't mean ignoring suffering or pretending it doesn't exist. On the contrary, Stoicism invites us to face it head-on, recognizing it as a natural part of life. When we accept this reality, we begin to see adversities not as punishments but as opportunities to practice cardinal virtues like courage, justice, and self-control. And here's the hook. By facing challenges with this mindset, we discover that we're much stronger than we imagined, something we'll explore further in the next topic. So, what adversity are you facing right now? And how can you use Stoic teachings to transform it into an opportunity for growth? Stoicism isn't just an isolated philosophy, it's a bridge that connects different schools of thought throughout history. Its ideas have transcended cultural barriers, directly influencing religions like Christianity and philosophies like Buddhism. This fascinating intersection shows us that, despite superficial differences, Many schools of thought share universal principles about how to live well and find inner peace. One of the most evident connections is between Stoicism and Christianity. Seneca, for example, exchanged letters with the Apostle Paul, creating a rich dialogue between his ideas and the emerging Christian teachings. Although they weren't exactly the same, both emphasized the importance of morality, justice, and self-control. The idea of loving thy neighbor and seeking internal transformation finds a direct echo in the writings of Marcus Aurelius, who affirmed that our main mission in life is to contribute to the common good. It's no wonder that many scholars see Stoicism as a philosophical basis for some of the pillars of Christianity. In the case of Buddhism, the similarities run even deeper. Both philosophies share the belief that suffering is inherent to the human condition but that it can be overcome through mindful practices. The Buddhist concept of material detachment, for example, reflects the minimalism preached by the Stoics. Moreover, both emphasize the importance of cultivating serenity in the face of adversities, approaching external events with equanimity. Whether meditating under a tree or reflecting on Marcus Aurelius' meditations, the goal is the same: to achieve a tranquil and resilient mind. Another interesting point is how Stoicism influenced leaders and thinkers across the centuries. Figures like Montaigne, Adam Smith, and even Nelson Mandela found inspiration in Stoic teachings. Mandela, for instance, spent 27 years in prison, facing extreme conditions of exile and modern-day slavery. During that time, he used Stoic principles to maintain his dignity and hope, proving that the art of living can flourish even in the harshest environments. This demonstrates that the teachings of Epictetus and Seneca remain relevant, regardless of the era or culture. This influence also extends to the field of modern psychology. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, widely used today to treat anxiety and depression, has clear roots in Stoicism. The central idea that our reactions to events, not the events themselves, determine our emotional well-being is purely Stoic. Imagine applying this perspective in your daily life. Instead of blaming the world for difficulties, you take internal control over how you interpret and respond to them. This simple practice can be a game-changer for anyone seeking inner happiness. Finally, it's worth highlighting that Stoicism functions as a kind of universal code for the art of living. Whether in Buddhism, Christianity, or any other tradition, its basic principles, like courage, justice, self-control, and wisdom, are timeless and universal. They remind us that, despite cultural and historical differences, we all share the same universal human challenges. By studying these connections, we begin to realize that we're part of something much larger, a collective search for inner peace and meaning. And here's the hook. As we explore how Stoicism shaped other philosophies and religions, we can start thinking about how to apply these universal principles in our own lives. After all, which of these traditions resonates most with you? And how can you integrate them into your personal path of internal transformation? If there's one thing that defines Stoicism as a practical philosophy, it's its ability to transform daily life into a masterpiece. For the Stoics, living isn't just existing or following automatic routines. It's an art that requires full attention, intention, and dedication. Every moment, no matter how simple it may seem, is an opportunity to practice cardinal virtues like courage, justice, self-control, and wisdom. And the best part? This art doesn't require expensive materials or special skills. It uses the very fabric of each individual's life as its raw material. Imagine treating your life like a blank canvas, where every choice, reaction, and thought is a brushstroke composing a unique work. Marcus Aurelius used to say that we should let our soul flow smoothly like a river, adapting to circumstances without losing its essence. This metaphor teaches us that inner happiness doesn't depend on external events but on how we navigate the waters of reality. When we start seeing life this way, even adversities become part of the creative process. Another fascinating aspect of the art of living is that it doesn't demand perfection. On the contrary, the Stoics argued that progress is what matters. Seneca, in his letters, emphasized that we should strive daily to improve, even if we advance only in small steps. He suggested setting aside time at the end of each day to reflect on our actions. What did I do today that brought me closer to the person I want to be? This simple practice, known as the examination of conscience, helps cultivate self-awareness and adjust our course whenever necessary. Moreover, the art of living involves learning to appreciate the present without getting lost in fantasies about the future or regrets about the past. Epictetus used to say that the wise person lives in the present. This doesn't mean ignoring planning or learned lessons but rather avoiding letting our minds get stuck in hypothetical scenarios. A practice inspired by this principle would be dedicating a few minutes each day to observe the world around you, the sounds, smells, textures. When you do this, you begin to notice beauty and meaning even in the simplest details of life. This approach also encourages us to question the consumerism and victim mentality that often dominate our society. Instead of seeking happiness in material goods or blaming others for our problems, Stoicism challenges us to take responsibility for our own internal transformation. Remember, true freedom isn't in external conditions but in the ability to choose how to react to them. When we adopt this mindset, we start living with more authenticity and purpose. Finally, it's worth remembering that the art of living isn't a destination but a continuous journey. Each day offers new opportunities to practice Stoic virtues and improve the quality of our existence. And here's the hook. By integrating these principles into our daily lives, we discover that we're capable of facing any challenge with serenity and clarity. But how do you start this practical transformation? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next topic. So, what will be your first brushstroke on this canvas called life? And how can you use Stoic teachings to create a work that truly reflects who you are? We've reached the end of this deep dive into Stoicism, but have you grasped the true essence of this philosophy? Stoicism isn't just a collection of ideas or theories, it's an invitation to transform your life from the inside out. Throughout these topics, we've explored how figures like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca faced the most extreme adversities with resilience, courage, and wisdom. Now the question is, how can you apply these teachings in your daily life? Imagine starting tomorrow with a new perspective. Instead of letting yourself be carried away by external storms, you decide to take internal control. How about practicing detachment from consumerism, focusing only on what truly matters? Or adopting the habit of reflecting on your daily reactions, always striving to improve your interpretation of events? These small changes may seem simple, but they have the power to completely transform the quality of your life. And if you're still wondering where to start, here's a practical suggestion. Choose a cardinal virtue, courage, justice, self-control, or wisdom, and focus on it for a week. For example, if you opt for courage, face that fear that's been holding you back. Whether it's speaking in public, initiating a difficult conversation, or even trying something new. Each step taken with intention is a step toward inner happiness and peace. But don't forget, Stoicism isn't about achieving perfection but about progressing continuously. Remember, true freedom isn't in external conditions but in the ability to choose how to react to them. When we adopt this mindset, we start living with more authenticity and purpose. Finally, it's worth remembering that the art of living isn't a destination but a continuous journey. Each day offers new opportunities to practice Stoic virtues and improve the quality of our existence. And here's the hook. By integrating these principles into our daily lives, we discover that we're capable of facing any challenge with serenity and clarity. But how do you start this practical transformation? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next topic. So, what will be your first brushstroke on this canvas called life? And how can you use Stoic teachings to create a work that truly reflects who you are? We've reached the end of this deep dive into Stoicism, but have you grasped the true essence of this philosophy? Stoicism isn't just a collection of ideas or theories, it's an invitation to transform your life from the inside out. Throughout these topics, we've explored how figures like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca faced the most extreme adversities with resilience, courage, and wisdom. Now the question is, how can you apply these teachings in your daily life? Imagine starting tomorrow with a new perspective. Instead of letting yourself be carried away by external storms, you decide to take internal control. How about practicing detachment from consumerism, focusing only on what truly matters? Or adopting the habit of reflecting on your daily reactions, always striving to improve your interpretation of events? These small changes may seem simple, but they have the power to completely transform the quality of your life. And if you're still wondering where to start, here's a practical suggestion. Choose a cardinal virtue, courage, justice, self-control, or wisdom, and focus on it for a week. For example, if you opt for courage, face that fear that's been holding you back. Whether it's speaking in public, initiating a difficult conversation, or even trying something new. Each step taken with intention is a step toward inner happiness and peace. But don't forget, Stoicism isn't about achieving perfection but about progressing continuously. Remember Epictetus' words, it's not what happens to us that defines us, but how we choose to react. This mindset can be your compass in moments of doubt or suffering. And do you know what's most amazing? These principles are timeless. They work as well for a Roman emperor as they do for someone living in the modern world like you. So what will be your next action? Will you continue following the automatic patterns of society, or will you decide to live with more purpose and awareness? The choice is yours and it starts now. If this content inspired you, don't hesitate to share your reflections or subscribe to follow more content like this. Together, we can build a community dedicated to the art of living better.